for these ancient words. From John's Gospel in the 4th chapter, we have a story about a woman at the well. Notice we don't know her name, but she is one of my favorite biblical characters. And most scholars will point out that the woman met Jesus at midday, rather than early morning when most respectable women would be gathering their water, leading to assumptions that she is disreputable, maybe sexually unclean, or some such thing just not accepted among the female cadre. Maybe she just didn't like waiting in line. Or maybe she found the morning chit-chat annoying. Or maybe she liked to sleep late. Who knows? But for the sake of argument, let's go with disreputable. So, I'm setting the scene for you. Here's what's going to happen. We've got Jesus talking to a disreputable Samaritan woman.
Hey, lady, give us a drink.
A Jewish guy asking a Samaritan gal for a drink? You gotta be kidding me.
You knew what water I had. You want what I got.
Oh, yeah? Is that right? Well, maybe you should give me some of that stuff. Because my feet are killing me from carrying these buckets back and forth.
Sure, but go and get your husband first.
I don't have a husband.
True that. You're going through 5 of them, and the guy in bed last night has a quick ring on it.
What are you, a prophet? What? I see. Okay, fine. All right. Well, tell me this. Look, my people, we worship on this mountain. Your people worship down in Jerusalem. What are you doing up here?
Mountain, city, it doesn't matter. Your people don't even know who they worship to. At least the Jews know who well this is. But I'll tell you this. What really matters is how you draw the water in spirit and in truth.
Wait a minute. Did you say my people don't know anything? Well, okay, fine. I'll tell you one thing that my people know. My people know that an anointed one is coming, and when he comes, we'll know everything we need to know. I am. He said, I am. He's I am. He's the I am. Everybody, he's the I am.
Hey, lady, don't forget your picture.
He's the
You're going to need it.
This is ancient wisdom and holy word. Thanks be to all that is wise and holy. All creation is wisdom and holy word.
All creation sings wisdom and God.
Hallelujah. All right. So, for Jesus to be alone with this woman was a little unusual because, as indicated, there's an implication that she might have been a little disreputable. Okay, here's a tangent. She probably wasn't disreputable. You know why I say this? Because that criticism has been aimed at powerful women throughout history to discredit them. And especially theological history. How many of you, for example, grew up believing that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute? Yeah. Okay. So, not true. It was later theologians who worried about the influence Mary's followers had, who had to come up with a reason for her to be less credible than the male disciples. One bishop called her a prostitute, and then it stuck, and then it got passed down through millennia. But if you read the Bible, you will see that there is zero there to support that argument. So, this unnamed woman in John 4 is now considered disreputable. I mean, granted, she'd had 5 husbands and a lover that she wasn't married to. But I don't know. Maybe it's because of that, or maybe it's because of what happens in this story. She and Jesus get into a relatively serious theological conversation. And even though John David and I were having some fun with it, there is some real depth to the conversation. Okay, so the woman is Samaritan. What does that mean? Okay, we all remember the parable, or most of us, some of us, remember the parable of the Good Samaritan. The reason that parable matters is that the one person who stopped to care for the man who was beaten on the side of the road was the one person who was least likely to do so. The nearly dead guy was Jewish. The 2 people that passed by on the other side avoiding him, also Jewish. But the person that stopped to help was a Samaritan. All right. So what Jesus was saying is, doesn't matter how you worship, doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter your ethnicity. That's not what matters. What matters is how you behave. Are you compassionate? Are you generous? Or are you not? So this woman, also a Samaritan, an enemy of a Jew like Jesus. And she doesn't avoid that conversation. She comes right out with it. She names the problem. You're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan. Why would I give you a drink? Later, she digs a little deeper into the heart of their separation. Our ancestors worship on this mountain. Your people worship in Jerusalem. Now, if Jesus had simply been a good rabbi, it would have been his chance to convince her that his ancestors were right and her ancestors were wrong. He doesn't do that. He does get a little jab in about her people not knowing much, but then he gets to the heart of his message. A time is coming, and now has come, when true worshipers will worship in the Spirit and in truth. God is spirit, he says, and worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. So Jesus jettisons both of the traditions. It's not about who, it's not about where, it's about how. God is spirit, and worship is in spirit and truth, just that. All of the externals fall away. All of them, gone. Okay, so to review, Jesus is talking alone to a woman. Jesus is having a theological conversation with a Samaritan. And then he basically says that both Samaritans and Jews are missing the point, that spiritual connection is all that really matters. Okay, that would be enough to make a great story. But then here's what happens. The woman brings up that she believes a Messiah is coming. Messiah simply means an anointed one of God. And there were lots of ideas floating around about what would happen when God's anointed showed up. It's really not that different than now, when you've got religious groups believing that there's going to be a second coming, and some of them know what that's going to look like. Some think it's fire and brimstone. Some think it's rapture. Some are even brazen enough to set a date. And when that date passes, they set another date. Well, this was happening back then, too. That's why so many people were getting baptized by John the Baptist, and other people were becoming zealots and Essenes and any number of sects within and around Judaism that had very passionate followers. Some people, other than the Samaritan woman, had questioned Jesus about whether he was the Messiah, and he generally just skirts the issue and changes the subject. But today, in this story, when the Samaritan woman mentions the Messiah, Jesus says simply, I am, or I am he. So I am, big word in both the Hebrew and the Greek scriptures. It is the self-naming of the divine or the Holy One. So like when Moses is at the burning bush and says, "Who are you?" The response is, "I am who I am," or "I will be who I will be," or "I am becoming who I am becoming." It's kind of a weird verb there, so it can be a lot of different things. But anyway, I am. And in John's gospel, there are a lot of I am statements. Why is this significant? Okay, one, because Jesus didn't answer this question before. And two, because when he does answer it, he does it to a possibly disreputable, certainly female, and certainly Samaritan person. And then she goes and tells the whole village, which makes her what? Evangelist? Yeah, I heard some other. Disciple, evangelist, gossip, messenger. Yeah, basically the first evangelist, the first preacher of the gospel, if you will. Now, wouldn't you think that because of that, she would be as well known as Peter and Paul and all the guys? Right? We don't even know her name. So, this is Women's History Month. And the theme this year is celebrating women who tell our stories. The National Women's History Alliance encourages recognition of women who have been active in all forms of storytelling. I would say that the woman at the well was a pretty important storyteller in the context of the Jesus event. And so I am here today to recognize her story and her storytelling. She went and told the story of her encounter with Jesus with the whole village, and the village who, according to the story, thought she was disreputable. A reputation that, by the way, did not stop Jesus, right? He didn't seem to care in the least how many husbands she'd had or how many lovers she'd had. He saw in her the pursuit of truth. He saw in her the pursuit of truth, and that's what he responded to. So in honor of this Samaritan woman, this first evangelist, the first person to receive and share the news that Jesus was an anointed one, I want to lift up some other women who pursue truth and share good news. And I want to start with the women of Iran. I am, old enough to remember the Islamic Revolution in 1979. 2 years later, when I was still a teenager, the hijab rule went into place saying that women must cover their hair. Now, for the whole 40 years that rule has been in place, there have been women who have protested it. But 2 years ago, a hardliner was elected president of Iran, and stricter enforcement of the rule was put into place. But since the death last year of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini by the country's morality police, women and girls have been at the center of a nationwide uprising demanding an end not only to the hijab requirements, but to the Islamic Republic itself. Around 20,000 people have been arrested during these protests, and more than 500 people have been killed as authorities violently suppressed the demonstrations. This is why we name women in history, because history is ongoing. History is now. I could spend a fair amount of time this morning sharing about the status of women worldwide with you. Some of it would be positive. Much of it would be concerning. Some of it would be devastating. But let me just make this connection between the woman in today's story and the women of Iran. Both say to us, the morality police will not silence us. We have truth to share and truth to tell, and we will do so. we will do so at risk to our very lives. Because we know that these men who would condemn us do not have the last word. Truth always has the last word. There is a rising in our world today of the truth of women. Black women are telling their truth. LGBTQ women are telling their truth. Native women are telling their truth. Women who had abortions are telling their truth. Women who've been sexually assaulted are telling their truth. And all of these, I believe, are part of a spiritual movement, whether recognized or not. The power of the divine feminine is rising. After hundreds of years of women's wisdom and women's divine healing powers being suppressed, sometimes violently, there is a rising up. Ancestral lines are being healed. Old wives' tales are finding scientific support. The divine feminine is an energy. It is fierce. It is wild. It is compassionate. It is healing. It is in women and men and non-binary folk. It is earthy. It is fertile. It is creative, and it is wise. It longs to be balanced with the divine masculine. But the divine masculine has been out of balance for a really long time, guys. And with the suppression of the divine feminine, the shadow of the masculine has run amok. And now we are in a time of deep correction. Mother Earth herself, the center and source of this divine feminine energy, is crying out for this correction. The era of extraction must end. Now, we all know this, right? We know it in our bones. We see it in our world, whether in the rise of authoritarian tyrants or the rise of the planet's temperature. Anyone with eyes to see recognizes the need for this healing balance. And the good news is, it's already happening. It is happening in Iran. It is happening with our increased understanding of plant medicine. It is happening in the Me Too movement. It is happening. Everywhere it is rising, there's a backlash. The death throes of an era that's reached its end. And this is not just about women in leadership, though that may be a part of it. It's not just about appropriate legislation here and around the world, though that probably needs to be a part of it. And it's not just about caring for our planet, though that may be the most important part of it. At its core, this is a great spiritual movement. It is a rising that is within us, but it is also a rising that is beyond us. Earth and our ancestors and the spirit world are bringing it to us, ready or not. Now, what does this have to do with Jesus and the woman at the well? A time is coming and has now come when true worshipers will worship in the spirit and in truth. All the great masters, all the great spiritual masters have said something along these lines. And Jesus said this to the woman: I don't care about your gender. I don't care about your ethnicity. I don't care about your religious affiliation. I don't care about your sex life. I care whether you are interested in spirit and in truth. And if so, let's engage at that level. Let's go there. Have other of you found yourself in conversations about how one of the fallouts of the pandemic seems to be that Some of us have lost our tolerance for operating at the surface. You feel that? You feel that? And we're only really interested now in engaging at that level of spirit, of change. It's not that we've lost our sense of humor or our ability to have fun. Heck, at least one of these conversations I had, I was wrapped in boas at the Mardi Gras parade. Our play, our humor, our hope, our joy longs to be based in something deep and true and meaningful. Fierce and wild, powerful and healing, compassionate and wise. The divine feminine is inviting us to find our joy in creativity that heals, in that which brings life and nurtures life. And this invitation is not gendered. All of us are being called. Anyone who knows me knows that I really like men. I mean, I do. Sometimes to my detriment. But I love masculine energy. I have such high hopes for you guys. I really do. And I see the wounds of patriarchy in your own souls. The patriarchy is a great example of winning the battle and losing the war. Yeah, you get to be on top for a while, but at what cost? Now, as we watch the logical conclusion of shadow masculinity playing itself out in an almost absurdist fashion all around us, I look around at the men in this room and in other spaces I inhabit, and I see the longing for balance, the longing for healing, the longing for spirit and truth. So as we start this Women's History Month, I invite you men, and all of us, wherever we find ourselves on the gender spectrum, to be part of creating this next era of history. An era when we won't need to set aside a month to remember women, or a month for Black folk, or a month for Native folk, or a month for Latinx folks, because white patriarchy won't be the norm from which the rest of us are seen as derivative. But when we are all together, gently, lovingly, fiercely, wisely, co-creating this world we all want to see. And it starts with these words. A time is coming and has now come. Has now come. Has now come. When the true worshipers will worship in the Spirit and in truth. May we have the courage and the wisdom to lead the way. Oh, yeah.